right, g'day. Welcome back to Collectivitis. My name's Pietro. This is Floyd. How you doing, Floyd?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
I'm real good. Do you want to know why I'm real good?
Why are you good?
Because he's gone. He's finally
Phew.
gone.
Bloody oath.
Dan the man, Tyrant Dan, Dictator Dan is done. How do you feel about that?
I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good. Yeah, when I heard, I was like, is this just like a joke? Is this like a parody account or something that's happened? And then it kind of sunk in, and it's like, wow, he's gone. He couldn't even say out that term. He just had to leave, whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know if it's what's his name, what's her name, his wife's. He's going to use that as an excuse or whatever. But it's like I don't really care at this point. He's gone. I mean, this is done.
Did you see it coming?
I heard a lot of people say he's not going to see out that term. I didn't see it coming myself, but a lot of people, I forget who, so sorry, those people that said it, whether it was in person or like on a video, a lot of people were saying he's not going to see out this term. So I wasn't surprised per se, but I did not see it.
Yeah, well, we talked about it on an episode about a month ago. So we called
Okay.
it as well as everyone
Okay.
else. So I'm
Well,
I'm
that's where I got it from. It's from I've watched Collectivitis, and yeah, I got it from there.
We called it though. I there was a lot of noise around it, so it wasn't like the greatest prediction of all time. Like there were rumors, and I mean, I even just sort of looking back through the Sky News highlights of the on YouTube, and there's several a few months ago where they say Dan Andrews on the way out, Dan Andrews on the way out. But the moment for me that was the nail in the coffin where I was certain that something had changed, something had been twisted in a direction that he no longer wanted to be around, was the Commonwealth Games. The pulling out of the Commonwealth Games, like, man, for a money hungry, money spending union slave, collect and spend as much as you can piece of shit like him, the Commonwealth Games is the perfect sort of thing. Like, you can blow that out to oblivion, and it gets you free votes. And in fact, he campaigned on it. But the moment that he cancelled those, the bank accounts must be awful. Like, the situation must be awful. Victoria must be on the brink. Australia must be on the brink, to the point that there's increased pressure on Victoria not to spend. And if you're, I mean, like, look at the kind of premier that Dan Andrews wanted to be, is this sort of hyper popular, hyper, on superficially sensitive, and kind of loves to push out groups kind of person that he is. And to not be able to splash cash wherever you want, and grease the palms of all the people that you have favors from, or that you owe favors to, you're crippled. So I think he got out while the going was good, and I think Jacinta Allen's going to have a rough time.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought as well. It was, how bad does it have to be for him to be like, all right, I have to get out now. I can't be in the limelight anymore. It's kind of like he gets rid of all those positive parts because it's so bad. And eventually the dominoes are going to fall and it's going to be me there. I do not want to be there at all.
Yeah, it's almost like it's bittersweet, because we all wanted to see him crash and burn for the consequences of his actions, and he won't now. And he will go down, as far as he wants to write the history books, or as far as Labor or the state in general will write the history books, as the premier that saw us through COVID, the premier that saved us all from death and disease. But that's not how I want to remember him. So before we talk about him any further, I've got a little clip of how I want to remember Dan Andrews. So let's enjoy this. 3 minutes.
For a small, ugly mob to be taking attention away from the more than 90% of Victorians who have had a first dose and will soon have had a second dose. That's where our focus should be. I'm proud of those Victorians, and I'm deeply grateful to those Victorians. Debate is fine. Disagreement is fine. That is a part of our system. What we have seen in recent days and weeks is not fine. It is awful. But it does not speak to the values the views and the conduct of the vast, vast majority of Victorians, and I, on their behalf, I'm offended, not at the threats, but at the fact that this ugly behaviour might be taking the focus away from what we should be focused on, how much we've achieved by sticking together, not by being divided, not by this ugliness. I'll make one final point on this issue, and I'm not here to talk about our political opponents, but politics is often about what you stand for, and it's always about who you stand with. And there have been some podiums shared, some comfort given. This is a preference hunt for some, and I don't think that ordinary, hard-working, mainstream Victorians, those who are not ugly extremists, will easily or readily forget who's been out on the front steps currying favour with extremists. Imagine if the Premier of this state had to manage a pandemic like we've had to manage these last 2 years, if you were beholden to extremists, if you somehow owed extremists a debt of gratitude. That is ugly.
That is ugly.
That was hard to watch, man.
That was hard to watch.
That
Yeah.
was, man. I had to step away at some point from even just listening to that guy. Just
Same.
that all coming back again. It just sickened me.
Yeah, no, in the moment, like it was, I had to stop watching it as well, because like what a vile, evil piece of shit.
Yeah.
So that video is from I think it was right at the pinnacle of mandates coming in and being implemented, like within a month. I think it was like late November.
With the quotas.
Yeah. And by December, I think New South Wales was looking at letting the unvaccinated back into society to some extent. And Andrews said, we absolutely will not do that. New South Wales are idiots. You know,
shut them out.
Yeah, we're going to lock them up till they die. I want to kill them all. Not those words exactly. I found it hilarious. Like, imagine being beholden to a group of extremists. Like, imagine being beholden to a group of extremists who would like to just be able to do the things they've done for the rest of their lives without being forced to do anything they don't want to do. So people who want to live exactly how their entire existence has been are extremists. And yet the non-extremists that, the extremists that I would say he's beholden to are all the fucking unions who had to keep work going during this period of time and had to get exemptions and be deemed necessary, because otherwise they were going to riot and, take him off the podium of being premier, because he is the slave to the extremists of all the unions, especially the construction unions.
And, those people in the upper house as well that he had to do to push through his votes for and all that type of stuff. I don't think they're average everyday Victorians or mainstream Victorians.
That's
the word.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think they represented mainstream Victorians. So it goes both ways, mate, but who cares, because he's Dan Andrews. He's the goat, man.
The goat. What was the Kashalia thing? How he called her that person when someone's betrayed him. Kushelia Vagila, whatever her name was, or however you pronounce that name. The Labor lady who flipped with Somyurek to stop the permanent pandemic powers going through, and he called her that person when he was referring to her. Do you not remember that? That was another classic around that period.
No, I just remember Somyurek coming back. So I think just the traumas blocked that out.
Well, anyway, our trauma's over.
Yes.
As in, well, our trauma's over, and yet it's not. So this is kind of one of the points
our PTSD to kick in. So that comes 10 years down the line. We wake up going, Zach Andrews in the night.
I wonder if I can get some funding for that. The good news is probably yes. Because the Labor left socialist faction is still in control. But the broader point that I kind of wanted to make in talking about, him and that video and everything that he represents is kind of the point that I made at the time that we first talked about Andrews, and that's that the fact that he's gone is actually not a cause for celebration. I've seen some people talk about it not being a cause for celebration because, well, the Labour Socialist left faction is still in control. But I even think that's not going far enough, because Andrews was exactly what the state creates. He's the power hungry, willing to, make alliance and backstab people and trip people up and do all the factional warfare to get to the top of his pile, which in his case was the Labour Party. And anyone who's willing to do that, who has to do all of that to get to that point, is going to be a self-serving piece of shit who will do whatever the powers of the state need him to do to line his own pockets and to curry his own favors and to get the power and esteem that he now gets to have for the rest of his life. He gets to have been a celebrity for the remainder of his life, and someone with an ego like that, that's exactly what they want. Him leaving is no solution in that, and I'm sure that whoever replaces him will be a different flavor of the same kind of person. So there's no solace in that. The state will continue to create that, and I'll go as far as to say, any other party, whoever is in those positions, would be a similar person. The major parties certainly.
Well,
you go.
So, yeah, just in regards to that, I always wondered, if the Liberals controlled Parliament during COVID, would we just get the same thing? Would we have gotten just the same flavor, or the same thing, just with a different kind of like a Liberal taint on it, as opposed to a Labor taint?
What I would say to that is absolutely 100% yes, and you only need to look at New South Wales for that. So New South Wales had so Berejiklian was the initial COVID tyrant who did all the exact same things as Andrews, maybe a few less lockdowns, but in terms of all the rest, mandates, and did lockdown every time that she could. If anything, maybe slightly locking down less just meant that she could have a point of difference to Labor, so she could point at it, but she was still willing to do exactly all the rest that was happening. And I remember when they had decided that, as was clear, because if you follow the science that they adhere to so strictly, they were talking about how like the 90% would mean that you could then have, vaccinated and unvaccinated people, and the hospitals wouldn't be overwhelmed, which I'll remind you was the original reason for the 2-week flatten the curve lockdown.
So we'd spread.
Yeah, so we'd achieved that, even according to their numbers. We would have achieved that if at 90% vaccinated, then other people would be allowed to do certain things. And I remember I was really excited at that time because it looked like there was an end in sight. If Berejiklian was going to, if New South Wales was going to do this thing, then we couldn't be locked up forever. And you remember the rhetoric at the time was, you are going to be locked up forever. You're going to die in a cage. Your life is over.
You get food and that's it.
Yeah. And even her, when they made this decree, there was a press conference or whatever, where they were asking her to talk about it. And it burned her ass so much to admit that like we would be letting these people back out. She was like, you have to understand, it's not I don't see it as a reward. I see it as a punishment that they're still locked up, because it burned her ass so much to say that they were going to do this thing. And then even when Dom Perrottet came in, who by all accounts was supposed to be this better kind of liberal. He was supposed to be, the renaissance of the conservative movement by all accounts. And he was I remember hearing murmurs that he was the one in the back, in the background, who was pushing Berejiklian to drop mandates. And then he becomes premier, and the first thing he does is he delays the unvaccinated being let out, and then he continues a whole bunch of stupid COVID shit, exactly the same as anyone else. So I think like whether Dom was actually any better, and then once you get to the helm, not only is the person who gets to the helm likely to be someone morally bankrupt, but even when someone who isn't gets to the helm, they find themselves to be hamstrung by all these other forces and all these other interest groups. And actually, they don't get to call the shots on anything, which I think is also the case. So I think the Liberal Party anywhere would have done no different to what Dan did, especially not here.
We probably just would have had a bit more of a scathing resentment. Well, I guess the mainstream Victorians would have had a bit more of a scathing resentment against Matthew Guy, as opposed to Dan Andrews, because Labor are the party of the people, supposedly.
Yeah, in a sense, we may have even been better off because of that, because there might
Yeah,
have been. Although I imagine what Labor would have done is they would have pushed for harsher lockdowns,
yeah, yeah,
and so Guy would have probably folded and
yeah,
done the harsher things anyway, because they're also spineless. They just want to
yeah.
hold on to that scrap of control. But the point I was making is that we have to. So if you think of like all the COVID tyrants that everyone had all this concentrated odium towards. There was Dan Andrews, there was Jacinta Ardern, there was Berejiklian, there was Palaszczuk, and then you look overseas, there was Trudeau, we have Biden. Who else did we have that was horrible? Have I said
You had
Jacinta
the guy
Ardern?
in you did the guy in California, the people in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the governors, I forget their name, the two brothers, the
Sorry, the future
Cuomo's.
president in California.
Yeah. The Newsom,
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom, the next president. And so we have all these people that we see as like the targets of our vitriol, and slowly most of them are now disappearing or going because the state cycles through people, and politicians are not the state. Politicians are tools used by the state who respond to incentives to enrich themselves. And slowly they're now being phased out, either because, Andrews clearly can't keep up the popularity, can't continue being the servant and the useful servant of the state that he was during the pandemic. So now we cycle on to a prettier face or someone with a softer tone like Jacinta Allen. And maybe that is how they keep control. And so, Ardern's gone, Dan's gone, Perrottet and Berejiklian both gone. Palaszczuk's probably gone soon. Biden's probably dead within the next year. Trudeau's still there. Trudeau, I would love to see, him go in a horrible fashion, but he'll probably go the same way that Andrews has gone. He'll smell the blood in the water and then disappear. And all of these people are gone. And so many, we have this feeling of like, yes, we got rid of these horrible COVID tyrants, but the COVID tyrants are the exact same politicians as any other period of time. It's just that during that period when the state pushed the envelope, we saw them bare their teeth. We saw them for what they actually are. The facade
they
dropped.
out.
Yeah, they can't be the sweet talking, anything goes, we'll do everything for everyone, because in that moment, what the state necessitated to increase its control was we're taking control here. So they had to bare their teeth, and they did exactly as they were told. And we saw the ugly side of politicians. But I don't think there was anything remarkable or particularly ugly about the set of politicians that we had in charge during those periods of time. You take any point in the last 100, 200 years, and I don't know before that, but probably before that again, they're the exact same people. You just see them in a different light during those moments there. So I think we have to remember that as many of these pieces of shit go, nothing changes until the whole system is burned to the ground.
Yeah, it's the political system. That's what it is. That's what it represents. And these people usually have a leash on them, but then you give them a crisis, you give them a problem, they have a reaction, and then there's a solution, as old Hegel would say. I had a question about that. Do you think? Let me phrase this pretty well, because they're all stepping down now. Do you think that their overlords, and we'll just say in Dan Andrews' case, the Labor Party, just said, you've outlived your usefulness, so you need to go now? Like the same everywhere. It's like, all right, the COVID crisis is over, your usefulness is gone. We need a new face, and we need a new person to come in, because seeing you is going to remind everyone of COVID.
Yeah, good question. Look, I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think some of them see the warning signs and get out while the going is good, because, I mean, the other thing is you have to remember, like, these are career politicians. They are professionals at this thing, and they're also the best at it to get to those tippy-top positions. They are the best at this sort of thing. They probably have quite good instincts for the party's shoving me out. I have enough favor within the party to hold off, or I'd better go away because this is how I retain my dignity. With Dan, I would suspect it was his own volition. I think it seemed pretty clear that he has the Labor Party locked up in Victoria. I'd say he saw yeah, the future's not looking good. I'm going to have to be a very different kind of premier. I'm going to have to even make fiscally conservative calls potentially, and I can't talk about how everyone deserves $1 billion for just to for equality, and I'd rather just stick with what I've already got. I've already extracted all this wealth. I've already got all these friends in high places. I'm sure he can go get a bajillion-dollar job wherever he wants in the world and live out his days, not in Victoria.
I reckon Channel 9, could be a footy presenter or something like that. I could definitely see him in a public facing role, just to kind of feed his own ego. I guess that's if the sentiment continues towards, Dan's a good bloke. I could definitely see him just sticking his face out there somehow. But if not, if the sentiment turns, then yeah, he'd just be in, making those millions of dollars in whatever the hell he's doing.
I think he is not going to stay in Victoria. I think that because, consider now him trying to lead a normal life wherever he chooses to hide his head, because there is just this cross section of society, and let's call it 3% to be, and I'd say that's underestimating it, but that's 3% of people who hate your guts. Yes. So that's a little bit over 1 in 20 who, if they saw you, would throw a shoe at you or a rock at you.
Yes.
And I
in Minecraft.
No, yeah. We are not advocating for violence. They would throw lots. He can't play Minecraft anywhere in Victoria, any server in Victoria, and he would get so many rocks thrown at him.
He goes to a Minecraft pub, and geez, you don't want to know what's in that beer, anything like that. You don't want to go to that smoking area, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, and I think that alone is enough to mean he'll go live somewhere else. He'll go live in New York or in America or something. Or Europe or some shit where no one knows him. Yeah, well, he's a household name in Australia. I think he represents, probably even in other states, what the regime was. So unless he wants to be kind of watching his back for all time, I don't think his name will quickly exit, the public domain, public memory. Like lots of other premiers have. He's the most notorious premier of Victoria of all time. I think he's past the point of no return. I think he'll go live somewhere else. I think Fauci's another one who resigned, to answer your earlier question. I think, as you said, case by case basis, some of those dipped away and disappeared through savviness. Some of them, I think, got shoved out and will continue to get shoved out. I don't know. Could be either way. I don't particularly know the New Zealand case. Do you remember the when they took the gallows to the steps of Parliament?
Yes.
When the protesters took the gallows up to the steps of Parliament. Yeah. Do you remember the outrage at that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna make a controversial statement here. Let's examine that situation on the whole. There were some protesters took gallows to the steps of Parliament, representing what they would do to the politicians if they ever came out and, insinuating violence or whatever. And it was blasted by everyone on any side of the debate, including lots of the others within the freedom movement. They don't represent us. They don't represent us. And okay, I understand. Violence is an ugly thing to suggest in these situations. But let's take a step back and look at who they were threatening violence on. So if you are a politician, a public servant, what you have done is you have decided to use the apparatus of the state to impose your own will on other people. You have decided that you are the representative of hundreds of thousands of people, and you're going to represent them by imposing your own will. Now, we all know how elections work. There's 100 different factors that go in there, and you don't actually represent the will of the people in your electorate. You represent at best 55% of who they thought was better looking out of you and the other candidate. They don't know. There's not 55% of people in your electorate who know what you stand for and agree with you to the point that they agree to you being the representative. Most of them are forced to vote anyway.
And a lot, it's like you're the second best or the third best person, I think, to represent us.
Exactly. You're not even the best. You're the least bad, and on preferences, you end up getting there. So these people who are being threatened, and oh my God, it's unthinkable, their whole purpose and their whole intention is to use the state. And what is the state when you break it down? The state is simply the organization which has, through historic dominion, through conquest, through whatever means they can, taken control of an area and monopolized violence in that area. That's the only thing that distinguishes the state from another organization, is that it has monopolized violence in an area in that only the state can exert violence in that area. The state's will, which is enforced by the police, which are paid for by people, whether they want to or not through coercion, can enforce violence to enforce their rules. And you as a politician have decided you are one of the arbiters of these rules. You get to choose what people can and can't use violence for. And if you think that's like going a bit far, even to the point of taxes, you get to choose how much money is siphoned out of people's pockets against their will. And if they refuse for long enough, they get thrown into jail. And if they continue to refuse, they get shot if you try and defend yourself against the people throwing you in jail. Now, in all of that context, I don't fucking think putting some gallows on the steps of Parliament is all that absurd an idea. Now, I understand it looks bad and everything, but if you look at the context of what the state does, they are far more violent. They are far more violent, far more oppressive, and we live in a world that is so bankrupt of any kind of relativity in observing these ideas that when we look at the gallows, we are shocked, and yet the very kind of responsible and kind of normalized violence that happens every day doesn't make us bat an eyelid.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not condoning the gallows, and I get that in terms of PR, it's a horrible decision if you're trying to actually change things. But this outrage at it is absurd, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I remember the gallows, and I remember at the protests they were saying, "Oh, we should hang these people, we should execute these people." And I turned around and I said, "When found guilty by a jury of their peers." Let's just add that caveat there. We're not just going to go out and just kill people because we think they've done wrong. That's a bad thing to do. And also what you said in regards to the police, when everyone was chanting, you serve us, you serve us. I'm like, no, they serve the state. Like, you don't say that. That's such a stupid thing to say. It's like, technically taxes pay for their salaries, but the state are the ones that sign the pay slips. If the state wasn't there, we would, but we wouldn't be freely saying, hey, here's some money, let's chip in our pool for the police. I mean, the free market would eventually do that, but we can have that conversation for a later date.
Yeah, it's the most like the most obvious you don't get it statement that you can make is you serve us. It's like, does it look like they're serving us? Does it look like the ones pepper spraying and shooting rubber bullets indiscriminately into a crowd that is protesting against oppression? Does it look like they're serving us? No, they're clearly not. But, and you can, exactly that point. Cool. Anything else to say on Dan and stuff? I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I not really. I mean, he's gone. As you said, it's just the next iteration of who they want there. By they, I mean the Labour Party. Let's not get into anything crazy here. And it'll just be same but different. And she's going to be stunning and brave for doing it.
Yeah, and I just want to preface any horrible violence I threaten against her is on Minecraft. That's how I intend. And the gallows, they were Minecraft gallows as well. That I was talking.
Yeah. Once found guilty by a jury of their peers.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about Jacinta Allen, who is our next, our current premier. And let's see if she might represent something any different about the state of things.
Here we go.
I also want to thank the love and support of my family. I've mentioned my husband and 2 wonderful children who give me such tremendous love and support, and who very much keep it real when you head home and work through the issues of the day. Not my issues of the day, but their issues of the day as a family. But also too, as the daughter of working people. My father, Ben and I were just reflecting, we're both kids of power workers. My father worked at the SEC, as Ben's did as well, and a proud union member, and also come from a proud Labor family. My mother and father have given me the foundation of everything I have done in my professional and personal life, and they've given me those values of hard work, determination to drive equality of outcome, equality of opportunity, and it's those values that I carry forward through to this day and onwards in the role I will serve, in the way I will serve as the Premier of Victoria. I will also just say this: I pledge to the Victorian community that I will continue to work hard, as I've done every single day as a Member of Parliament, particularly too, I think in the last 8 years, how we have worked hard as a government. We've certainly driven a big and strong agenda in the transport infrastructure space, where we've gotten away big and complex and challenging projects that we haven't run away from. I haven't walked away from those challenges. We've pushed on because we've understood the importance of those projects, like the Metro Tunnel and like the projects underway, the North East Link, the Westgate Tunnel, removing level crossings as we've been doing across the community of Melbourne. But
all right, that's enough there.
Yeah.
I'll have you got anything first, or should I start?
Yeah, I'll go. I loved that the idea of perpetual classdom, in the sense that my parents are working class people, but yeah, what's going on with you now? Would you call yourself working class now? It's like, where do your children go to school? Do they go to a state school? Are you perpetuating this working class air just because your parents were working class? Or can you say, hey, my parents were working class and we've managed to make that step up, and that's what I want to do. I want to do that for all people, help them make the step up, as opposed to just say, yeah, we're good unionists and this and that, and this is who I'm going to be representing. And yeah, working class now, don't look at me now, but just look at me back then and where I came from, because that's the most important thing.
I've got some bad news for you.
Yeah.
She's actually not working class. She's actually a career politician. She's gone from university straight to staffer, straight to another staffer for a while, elected member of the Labor Party, factional piece of shit, and now Premier. She has worked.
Well, I'm assuming that her children, assuming that she does have children, they're not in TAFE. They didn't finish when they were 16 and went into the workforce or anything like that.
Yeah, no, but she understands. She understands the struggle. Well, I think more important is that it's clearly like she's thrown all the dog whistles for Labor unionists and working class and everything in there that she needs. Dad was a union member, so I'm going to look after the unions. And have I mentioned construction? I'm those big, huge builds on construction that have blown out beyond regard and is half the reason, not half the reason, far less than half the reason considering COVID, but a huge reason that the state's in debt. I'm going to keep doing those. Love those. Great idea. Going to keep doing those. Don't you worry. You're a unionist. You're a construction worker. I am not going to touch you. I'm going to give you heaps more money to continue these projects that hollow out and rot the economy of the state. So don't worry. All good. I'll be doing that. Also, how's equality of opportunity and equality of outcome in the same sentence? Equality of opportunity. Everybody will be given the exact same opportunities to succeed. We don't need anyone being given more chances than others. We're also going to make sure that the outcomes are all exactly the same, because as we know, every person is a direct clone of any other person. And if we replace anyone in any job that they're doing with any other person of age, race, gender, whatever, they will do exactly the same job and they should be worth exactly the same money. So equality of opportunity and equality of outcome, best of both worlds. Fantastic.
Well, also one thing I did note, I like that she said keep it real, just to appeal to the youth. Just, you know, she's cool. She can keep it real.
She has a vape halfway through it. She just has a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
suck of the
yeah,
vape and keep
yeah,
it
for
real, my
sure, for
brothers.
sure.
I'm keeping it.
I'm going down to have a few cones right now. Anyone want to join me?
Equality of opportunity and equality of outcome. And to my under 22s, don't forget to keep it real. I'm from the streets.
Yo, I'm going to Strawberry Fields. Anyone else want to join me?
Yeah. She's obviously look, I don't know what you think. I think what they've gone for here in choosing her, I don't know if it's like if there's much thought that goes into choosing the next one beyond who is just able to wrangle the most factional power. If there is choice and there is some decision made, I can see why they've gone with her. She's a much softer touch than Andrews. She comes across as, you know, as like she's not odious in the way that she talks the way Andrews is. Like the things that she's saying, we can pick them apart. And obviously any politician who's in those positions there is saying absolute drivel and bullshit and stuff that just sounds good but doesn't actually have any substance to it. But the way she comes across, she's a softer touch. She's, you know, clearly a mum and kind of that sort of figure, very well put together, and doesn't have this kind of imposing sort of I don't know, confrontational look that Andrews seemed to have. Now, I could be wrong. This is a first impression. I don't really know her from a bar of salt because I'm not particularly interested in the inner workings of the Labor Party. But in case you're wondering if her reign is going to be any different than Andrews, Tim Pallas, the new treasurer, has within the first couple of days of her reign already announced that there's going to be a new tax. They've already added a new tax. So it's on like unused land or something, but it's just to let you know that we're still going to increase taxes. Don't you fret. Taxes will continue to go up as cost of living.
As they should. I mean, come on. Like, we need to support all these people. We need to make sure that the different people can be in the same thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I think my first impression is that she would have done exactly as Dan did during COVID.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Because I mean, it's two sides of the same coin, really. I mean, if they're coming from the same faction, it's the same principles, the same party. It's not like, hey, this is a fresh start for me. Career politician. So she's in it all. She's indoctrinated in the web of the state. So it's not like, hey, I'm a fresh face who's coming through. And yeah, me and Dan, you know, it's on record. Me and Dan had a few blowouts and had some blowouts here, but I'm here to kind of settle it all. It's like, no, I'm here. I'm here for the unions. I'm here for the working class. I'm going to spit the same rhetoric as Dan did before, and you know, love it or leave it. You can't say that, but you can't say that about the country. We can say that about the state.
Remember when Andrews they were talking about how everyone wanted to go to South Australia for holidays, and he goes, South Australia? Why would you want to go there? I mean, no offense to South Australia, but like, we've got everything you could possibly ever want in Victoria, implying, you know, SA is a shithole. Like, they've got nothing compared to us. Just the gall. I'm gonna really struggle without Andrews, to be honest. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough content for the podcast.
Man, give it a few weeks. We'll see what happens.
The point I wanted to make as well. So she's much more she comes across as far less confrontational, and I'm like sort of a peacekeeper type person. She's soft spoken, polite, and all the rest of it.
Bit of that. Well, sorry, go on. I just had a kind of a.
Yeah, well, we might be talking about the same things. Same sort of thing as Chris Minns, Chris Minns, whatever his name is, the New South Wales Premier for Labor, who was hailed by everyone, including people in like freedom and freedom adjacent movements who we've spoken to, who I have great regard for, who say, you know, he is exactly what a politician should be. He's not confrontational. He's putting differences aside. He's trying to mend. He's trying to heal. I fucking hate that. He's still a rat at the top of the fucking hill of rats. Like, he's still doing exactly all the same other shit that any Labor or Liberal or state or whatever fucking party is doing with all the same expansion and all the same incentives and responding to all the same things. But what? Because he's a little bit better at PR, we should go easy on him because he seems to be making a less divided country. Fuck that. I'd rather a divided country. I'd rather my tyrants look like tyrants. I'm losing my voice. Anyway,
well, no,
so
he's a good bloke. You know, that's the thing. It's like, oh, he's a good. Remember, I forget who it was. It was like everyone loved him. Anyway, it was someone, and it's like, yeah, you could have a beer with the guy. That's why he's great. You could have a beer with him, and it's like, really, that's your how you want to see a politician, someone you can relate to, so they can talk shit to you at the pub and lie to you about something that they've done, like, because that's what people at the pub do.
Yeah, instead of the fish I caught was this big, you know, the
increase
in government that I did was this big.
Yeah.
Except it's actually double what they've told you is the difference, unlike the fish thing. It's like, yeah, exactly. Like I love my the person who is in charge of the organization who steals more than half of my wealth every time I get a paycheck to be a really personable, nice guy that I can have a chat with. I would love nothing more than to have a chat with the guy who is robbing me blind and pretending that it's a good thing for me that he's doing it. Thank you.
And because when I'm pissed off at him as well, I can give him a call and he can explain it to me. And because he's a good bloke, I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's all right, mate. I get it now, because, you know, that whole social dynamic of the nice guy or the good bloke or whatever you want to call it. It's like,
it's good. Yeah, good cop, bad cop is what they're hitting you with right now.
Yeah.
Chris Minns, good cop. You know, Jacinta Allen, good cop.
Yeah.
Dan Andrews, bad cop. But hey, you know, you don't want him. Hey, guys, at least we got rid of Dan. You know, like now that Dan's out of the room, go on, incriminate yourself. Go on, incriminate yourself so I can arrest you.
Yeah.
Dan comes back in. You know, tell me what you did.
No, but what I kind of saw from Jacinta Allen there was she was kind of like the mum figure. And Dan Andrews was kind of like the dad figure, the bad dad. Like, you haven't got your vaccines. Go to your room. Whereas like, I understand, but you should probably do that because, you know, it's a good thing to do, and I want you to go and say that you're sorry. And
that's so true. She comes in after, she's like, hey, look, I know you probably should have got your vaccine and everyone yelled at you. And, you know, we said some things, you said some things. Let's all go and make peace, because after all, we are a family. And, you know, whether we like it or not, we're going to have to get along. And please give me over half your income now, because you have to. So,
and I'll give you a cold dinner if you give me half your income.
Yeah.
Because I'm busy. I'm a working mum.
That's so no hope. No hope is the outcome of that.
TLDR.
Yeah, TLDR. There's no hope. No, there is hope. There is hope. It's I'm sure it's somewhere, but I'm sure we'll find it. But I'm sure there is hope, because otherwise, what's the point? You know.
Well, just no hope for the Labour Party.
Oh,
and the current rulers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, do you think the right faction of the Labour Party would be any different? I don't know if there'd be any actual policy differences. I don't know if there'd be any actual taxation differences. It's hard to tell. I'd imagine not. I mean, Somyurek, for all the Somyurek was fantastic in how he came out against Andrews and screwed up his pandemic bill and all the rest of it, and was, you know, his personal vendetta against Andrews meant that some good things happened. Somyurek was a fucking odious bloke as well. I remember watching those was it IBAC or ICAC? One of them is Victoria.
Well, IBAC was the one they had Dan Andrews at.
Yeah. I think it was IBAC in Victoria. I think it's called ICAC in New South Wales. When they had the hearings on him because of the red shirts, wrought stuff, and he name dropped Andrews like 100,000 times. I remember I was working from home / about to not have a job. I was watching all that shit. I had nothing but time. And I remember watching live the Somyurek, and this was before he decided to try and flip the whole thing, and he was just covering his own ass for stuff that he'd obviously done. And I just remember, like, the prosecutor was actually quite good. I forget his name now, to my discredit, but he was digging in, and he'd so calmly unravel lie after lie, and everything he said, he would stop and he would examine it, and he would point out why that was a lie. And Somyurek just lying through his teeth, every word out of his mouth, just this like lie, like, I have never seen someone personify so clearly the image of a lying rat. And I remember when he came out and started trying to make moves and play against Dan in Parliament, I just remember thinking, yeah, it's great to have the rat on our side for the worst possible reasons, but at least the rat's on our side. You put a rat against a rat, maybe our rat will come out on top. That was the one piece of sauce. But yeah, he was the right faction of the Labor Party here in Victoria. Okay. So I don't think there's much hope coming out of him.
I think the right faction for the Metro Tunnel and things like that would have just employed more of their mates to do the work.
You reckon?
Yeah. So let's just get more, because it's capitalism. We'll just get more of our mates to this. I know this guy. Let's get them on board. You want an extra 10%? Oh, we'll give you an extra 10%. We'll just inflate it a little bit more, because as long as our mates are making money, that's the good thing.
Yeah, it'd be weird to see what their idea of capitalism is, because if they're the right, the more free market side of the Labor Party, and I don't consider the liberal free market wing to have any real idea about what the free market is and is supposed to work. So I can only imagine that the right free market wing of the Labor Party has a really skewed kind of idea of what.
I think the right liberals would just employ their mates who are in small business.
No way. Is the whole government just this big circle jerk of employing your mates? Is that all it is?
That's why you get elected, mate, so that your mates can get looked after.
My mates are gonna bash your mates when I get in. All my mates gonna have all your jobs. That's funny, but that's pretty much exactly how it works. We haven't got too long left. There is one other thing I wanted to talk about, and I think you've got something to say about it. So the first thing I wanted to say, so the Voice is obviously the talk of the town right now. The Indigenous Voice to Parliament is you can't walk anywhere without seeing people with the shirts on, with either yes, or far more rarely you see people with the no shirts on. You see, vote yes plastered throughout shop windows and stuff like that. And yet the yes vote continues to seem to be in the minority compared to the no vote, which suggests that they have to propagandize to try and bolster their numbers on the date. And you can't, it's the talk of the town everywhere. And I think the first thing that needs to be said is that with all of this stuff that we've just outlined, of everything that's wrong with the state, with the people in charge, with the perverse incentives, with the giving money to your mates that they do, and all of it, like the state on the whole being the most horrific organization that's ever existed on planet Earth, we aren't ever really talking about that in public discussion. Like, libertarians bang on about it all the time, but they're sent to the fringes and they're called extremists by people like Dan Andrews. And this, which is really the most important thing that people should be talking about all the time, is never talked about. But what we get instead are particular issues that don't really matter, such as, whether the Constitution has, race enshrined with it, or I'd rather personally know. And but you're allowed to have fervent, violent, vitriolic discussion in this thin little strip, and in that you can disagree and bash each other and punch each other and call each other Nazis and racists and whatever, and outrage and have a big old vote that divides the country on that doesn't really matter or change anything. But on the myriad of things that actually do get changed by the horrific organization of the state, that's not part of the public's discussion. And I think that's exactly by design, is what I want to preface the discussion on the Voice with. But the thing that we were going to talk about specifically about the Voice is that the AEC, who have been accused of being impartial more than once or twice, their colors are this very particular shade of purple. And back in 2019, I think they took the Liberal Party all the way to court and possibly fined them about having used some core flutes, some signage that had that same color purple. And so since then, everyone's known, anyone who's had anything to do with elections has known, and campaigning knows, that you can't go anywhere near that shade of AEC purple, because they will come down on you like a ton of bricks. And I remember I worked in the campaign office for the Libertarian Party last year through 2 elections, and we who had, were running on the smell of an oily rag compared to the major parties, we knew that you have to avoid that as a matter of priority, because they'll come down on you like a house of bricks. And so what's interesting that's happened in the last few days is that the Yes campaign, funded by God knows how many millions of, maybe, no, I don't know. I don't know how much money, but it's clearly massively funded and corporately funded, and probably there's some hands in government departments in there as well. And
I think I wouldn't discount NGO funding as well.
Absolutely,
and
without a doubt.
non-for-profit funding.
Absolutely, as well. Yeah. NGOs who obviously in the end also have their hands and cooperations with governments, of course. And despite all of that funding, they have used some signage which looks exactly like the AEC has made some core flutes that are telling you to vote yes. So I think it's funny in and of itself. It's obviously beggars belief that this has actually happened as a genuine accident. I think there's not a doubt in anyone who's serious's mind that this has happened. And the AEC has kind of brushed it off with a warning, of course, because they are as impartial as impartial comes. What do you think?
I didn't know about this 2019 ruling. But my opinion was, hey, this is great marketing. Good on them for doing that. They have really, I mean, even learning after this, the balls to do that, number one. And just even the thought, hey, let's do it. I mean, that is marketing to a T. I commend the Yes campaign for doing that, just for the sheer balls.
I think. Nah, disagree. I think they knew that the implication is that they knew that while this was, clearly a rule that they weren't allowed to break, and everyone knew that this rule was a rule that you couldn't touch and you couldn't break, clearly the iron fist of the law wasn't going to come down as hard on them for breaking this rule as it would on a minor party that is pushing against the regime, say us, or even kind of mild pushing against the regime, mild outsiders like UAP or One Nation. I mean, I know Craig Kelly, they took him to High Court over some signage over the last federal election, which they took him and fined him and punished him, and then eventually months and months and months later, he ended up winning the court case. So it was
the election.
Oh, way after the election, like only recently, like within the last couple of months. And it was used as an example to show, hey, look, they come down on you hard in the moment to hamper you and to hamstring your chances. And then afterwards, it actually was proven through a court separately that he hadn't done anything wrong. Like, it's no accident that happened to Craig Kelly, the UAP outsider who was saying no mandates, rather than the fucking Greens or fucking Fiona Patton from Reason. Like, obviously it was never going to happen to them. So the Yes campaign is, it took a little bit of balls by whoever suggested it to go, hey, what do you reckon? Will we get away with this? And everyone in the room probably said, no, but no, we won't.
Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
We're not going to rule against this, but if it happened to have been done, then let's see how it works.
Exactly. And man, as much as I was saying just a second ago that I don't care, like, it's not a huge point whether yes or no gets up, but much like with Trump, the Trump getting in was a middle finger to all the right people. And all the people I want to give the finger to are coalescing around the Yes campaign. And like, just for that reason alone, like, you odious piece of shit, I want the no vote to get up. Like, have you seen the video that's been circling around of the she's a professor. She's a university professor, so already an absolute leech of the state, who is campaigning with the yes flag, yes shirt, and everything. And a guy comes up with her with a camera.
The spitter.
Yeah, calls her a mole.
Yeah.
She spits in his face, and then not 10 seconds later, retracts back to her friend and says, "I don't spit." What do you mean I don't spit?
Yeah.
Like, yuck. And then there's just disgusting people. And I'm sure there's plenty of them on the no side, but obviously, I am also just as impartial as the AEC. So I'm going to hate that.
I think that's a good stance to take. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Let them lose once. If Labor and their people get in federally, get in Victoria, you see them happening all over the states. It kind of seems like this tidal wave for them, and then No comes in, and it's just like, yeah, how do you feel now? This is how you feel, and it might be that some of that momentum gets stopped there. So yeah, I'm not a real big yes no person, but yeah, it would be very good to see what I'd call the little guy, maybe the little right leaning guy, kind of get up and say, all right, we've actually got to win.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's an actual genuine upside to the no vote potentially getting up, is that while that alone means nothing, it could embolden the right wing of politics to actually, try and shrink the size of government, try and talk against every new public sector opportunity that's done. Not as the Liberal Party were talking after losing the last federal election. I remember the night of, there were people in the Liberal Party camp on the news station saying, I think this shows that Australia is leaning more and more to the left. The Liberal Party has to move further to the left to recapture the inner city people. Like, the absolute worst take of all worst takes you could possibly have after losing like a pig, getting stuck like a pig, is to go, we weren't left enough. So hopefully the no vote, because they're trying to label them racists, and they're trying to label them, the Nazis turned up to the protest, just like you predicted.
That's right. That's right. Woo, I got it.
Another collectivitis prediction coming true. They're trying to label them all the things that they were trying to label, for example, the Trump supporters. So if the no vote gets up, also much like with Brexit, maybe it's a sign that there is this majority of people who are not absorbing the propaganda as it's being sold to them. And there could potentially be a translation in electing someone very different from all the people currently in power. I mean, the fact that the Republican base in the US will never be the same post-Trump, something like that needs to happen here. Now, I don't think the no vote is anywhere near as momentous as Trump or anything, not even 1%. But maybe it's a sign that there's some room for that.
Yeah, well, that was the thing with me during like the federal and the state. It's like, all right, especially the state election, I'm like, if Liberal get in, or you get a few more, I guess what you'd say is independents or minor parties. I don't consider the Greens a minor party these days, just for the record. That's going to show that there is somewhat of a silent majority. And then I see the yes, no, and I don't know if that's just me trying to pat myself on the back more, but it's like, all right, cool. This might be the tipping point to see that silent majority, and if it's there. But with that, you do have a lot of confusion around it, and it's not like a typical voting issue. So it's interesting to see how the no vote's going to go, because the no vote seem to be people who disagree for hundreds or tens of reasons, and then you've just got confused people who are just like, either you got people like me who don't really care, and then you've got people who are just confused, and they're like, well, why am I voting yes for something? So it'll be interesting to see the margin, because the yes voters are we know why, we've got 2 reasons or 3 reasons why we're actually voting for this. We are stuck in our ways. And so that shows you, I think that's more the margin of how many people are on the side of what I'd call, I don't want to use the term military industrial complex, but you know, that kind of that agenda, let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think it is probably oversimplifying it to try and say that it's just a culture wars issue. There's loads of people, like even the fact Dutton straight away came out and said that he wants the voice, but in a different form and not enshrined in the Constitution. We need to do it right rather than saying outright the correct position, which I would say, or the libertarian position, which is simply don't add a layer of bureaucracy to already an insane crumbling house of bureaucracy. So yeah, there's you're right. There's probably a huge number of reasons, but I guess I'm gambling that there's at least some subsect of or some relatively influential or numerous subsect of that no vote, which is the people who are just saying like, fuck you, no,
Yeah,
just
definitely.
because.
And I think it does tie into the culture war a little bit, because it's saying, well, this is what, if you want to use the term woke, this is what the woke people are saying, and we're against this, so we're automatically going for that. It's kind of sad as well, because I see this on the yes and the no. It's not even really about the Indigenous anymore.
No.
You're disregarding the Indigenous voice in the first place to see what they want to give them an Indigenous voice, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's just like, I see you're moralizing, and just because of your moralizing, I'm saying no.
Yeah.
And the yes guys are saying, hold on, I'll tell you what you want.
Yeah.
Indigenous man, you want a voice.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are at the hour mark. We've blasted through it with the voice at the end there. Any last comments on the voice before we sign off?
No, not really. All I'm going to say is this. As with everything, if you're considering your vote and you don't know where you're at, just vote with how you feel. Don't be swayed by anyone, whether that's the no campaign or the yes campaign. There's not a lot of facts out there about the voice, but just say, this is what I want to do. And if you're in a side of people, if you know a lot of people who are voting no, and you want to vote yes. And if you know a lot of people who are voting yes and you want to vote no, just vote no. Just go with what you want to do, and don't be swayed by a group of people, even if they are close to you.
Cool. I'm going to go with the message, vote no or you're a hoe. Thank you very much for listening. This has been Collectivitis. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We'll catch you next time.
Take it easy.